What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode on EI Entertainment Studios, back at it with another debate episode. Today's debate episode, we're going to be talking about Shin Biolante versus JORMUNGANDR. This is going to be a very interesting one. We're introducing some Norse mythology here. Any of you people who've played God of War might know JORMUNGANDR as the World Serpent. We'll go more into detail of everything. So here's the plan. We're going to go over these two giant kaijus. We're going to analyze them, go over their backstories, characteristics. Once we're done with that, and it's going to take us a while, so it'll be very interesting as we dive deep into these creatures, we'll put them up against each other in a death battle to see who would win in a very calculated way. So you'll enjoy that. So without further ado, let's begin with JORMUNGANDR first, and then we'll move on to Shin Biolante. So Jormungandr is the offspring of Loki and Angrboda. As a frightening serpent the gods sent Jormungandr into the sea, where he grew so massive that now he folds around the earth. Hence, we call him the World Serpent. So that's essentially the overall backstory of the World Serpent, or Jormungandr. So he was called Jormungandr, and now we call him the World Serpent, but we're going to go with the main name Jormungandr for this whole video. Now, for the abilities, we're going to do a quick skim. We're going to look over them. We're going to go over every other characteristic, and then we'll come back and do a deep analysis, so don't worry about that one. So quick skim abilities for Jormungandr: speed, strength, durability, venom, and megabyte. Territorial is medium, aggression is high, and that is going to sum it up. Let's go back to the abilities. So first we have speed. Obviously, this is a serpent. Jormungandr is known to have insane amounts of speed. Now this is good for both offensive and defensive because he can back away from his opponent or whatever he's fighting and also charge with fast speeds, very fast speed. So that's really good. Next we have strength. Knowing the pure muscle in this thing. I mean, think about it. You can essentially wrap around the world. Imagine how much muscle and flesh and skin is going to be around, inside of that skin. So this is going to be essentially pure strength. You can choke his enemies out like how those snakes grab their opponents around the neck and they just choke them out. Well, imagine being Jormungandr and doing that, and even tail whipping and all that stuff, which is really good. And combining these two, we have durability. And durability is not only that it's important, I think any kaiju, or in this case monster, they mean the same thing. If you're going to try to win a fight and you don't have durability against a monster that has durability, or in this case, maybe a god or whatever, in the terms of Norse mythology, you need durability. Unless you have these superpowers that are gonna, distort time and space. In this case, Jormungandr doesn't have those abilities. He relies on his physical traits, and durability is gonna cause him to be more successful. While, as I said, offensive and defensive as he's attacking. To have speed and strength is one thing, but to have durability to continue using those things at a long pace is what makes the difference. The next one we have is venom. Now, I'm going to go more deep into this. The venom is Iter. And this venom is known to be so powerful that it can kill a god. And so, essentially, that puts into perspective when he discretes this venom into his opponent's flesh, or wherever he tries to put it in. As I said, it's called Iter. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. I think I am. It is super deadly, it's super lethal, and as we established, it's strong enough to kill a god. And finally, we have Megabyte. He has enormous fangs ready to just completely rip into the flesh of his opponents. With the amount of, the pure size of his skull, generates a lot of power in that bite, so making that a Megabyte. Okay, so this essentially is going to sum up Jormungandr. Let's move on to Shin Biolante. And let's go over the backstory for her and do the same process we just did. So, Shin Biolante came into the existence when the coagulant that was sprayed into Shin Godzilla's mouth, right before he froze, one of the small humanoids was able to fall off the tail before all of them froze. From a long fall, the humanoid was bleeding and looked for a place to rest, and happened to come across a field of roses, and essentially thought that they could be food. The humanoid started eating all the roses, and his DNA, essentially this was like the blood and all that stuff that's dripping down Shin. This is what I mean by the DNA. And his DNA mixed with all of the roses he had devoured, including the blood he spilled on the ones he didn't eat. The roses came alive and decapitated the humanoid and formed Shin Biolante by essentially combining the two body parts. Very gruesome, but this is the backstory that I personally came up with Shin Biolante. Now, height for Shin Biolante is 252 meters tall. Insane. But remember, we're going up against JORMUNGANDR, who is said to be long enough to cover the entire globe. But still, 252 meters tall is impressive for Shin Biolante. Now, abilities. Again, quick skim. We're going to go over everything. We're going to come back and do a deep analysis. So right now, just a quick skim. Spiked atomic laser, 10,000 tentacles, tentacle poison laser, regeneration, instant adaptation, false heart trap, and that's about it. We'll come back. Territorial is high, aggression is low, biome is unlimited for Biolante. Or I should say Shin Biolante, but you guys get the point. Alright, let's go back to the abilities and let's do a deep analysis. First we have is the spiked atomic laser. So the spiked atomic laser is actually a very important ability. So if you guys have ever seen the original Shin Godzilla, he has lasers all over his back, right? Now, obviously this is taking in Shin DNA. And spiked atomic laser over Shin Biolante is essentially the same thing. It's lasers, multiple lasers all over the body, but since she is half rose, half Shin, the roses are known to have thorns. Now, obviously she's huge, so there's these giant thorns that also get shot out into the lasers. That's hence called spiked atomic laser. So imagine the opponent is getting hit with very, very steaming hot lasers with giant thorns of roses in them. So it's ripping up the flesh double the amount. Very, very powerful. And to mention, these are all over the body. Okay, the next one we have is 10,000 tentacles. So for comparison, I'm sure you know the original, or I should say the regular Biolante has 4 tentacles. This one has 10,000 tentacles, each of them having their own head, own tongue, own teeth. You can imagine how amazingly powerful that's going to be. Now, not only that, but the tentacles have the tentacle poison laser. So, as I said, putting the, Biolante, in this case, Shin Biolante having her own spiked atomic laser, the tentacles itself have a poison laser. And this poison laser is very, very powerful because when they use this, it actually numbs the opponent from feeling pain. And well, you might wonder, how is that powerful? It's powerful because if you can't feel pain, you don't know when to retreat. You could be just bleeding out and still trying to fight, and you're going to essentially just drop dead. So that's why it's essentially like an illusion. You don't feel pain. And so when she uses the tentacle poison laser, that's what happens. Next we have regeneration. This comes purely from Shin DNA. We know Shin Godzilla was able to regenerate because of his DNA, and that same DNA is inside of Shin Biolante, so she can regenerate her health. Instant adaptation. This is essentially very, very quick adaptation / evolution. We know again this comes from Shin DNA. Shin was able to evolve from Form 1 to Form 2 to Form 3 to Form 4 fairly quickly, especially the first 2 forms, or actually the first 3 forms, I should say. And this is the same with Shin Biolante. She can instantly adapt to fit her environment, fit her situation, fit to adapt to make the opponent's abilities essentially numb to her. Very, very powerful. And finally, we have one of the most interesting ones, is the false heart trap. which is known as the Mirror Blast. So essentially, if you guys ever seen Biolante, she has this giant heart in the middle of her stomach, and that's her weak point. That's actually how Godzilla was able to destroy her in Godzilla versus Biolante. However, this is a illusion in the Shin Biolante version because it's a mirror, and opponents are going to look there, going to try to attack, and that's going to be quote unquote the weak point. But what it is a mirror. So whatever the opponent does, it mirrors exactly right back to them. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use Godzilla here. I know we're not using Godzilla, we're using Jormungandr here, but it's just to show an illustration. Let's say Godzilla were to use an atomic breath on the mirror or the false heart trap. The atomic breath would essentially hit and mirror right back to his face or his body, wherever. That's just to show you what I'm trying to say. It's an illustration. Okay, this will sum up Shin Biolante. We already went over Jormungandr. Now let's go to the point we've all been waiting for, the death battle. Now, how do we do this? We're going to rate these two kaijus, monsters I should say, from close range and far range. We've been always doing this. This is the criteria. So far range, they have to be 700 meters apart. Close range and face to face. Why do I do it like this? Far range limits some abilities from the opponents. And so when we limit them, we're trying to see if they can still win a battle. And it really puts them to the test, right? Because we're limiting some stuff. And then the close range is just face to face. So we'll do far range first, and then we'll do close range. So in terms of far range, again, I'll repeat this, they have to be 700 meters apart. What that means is there is absolutely no physical contact. So any abilities that relies on physical contact are absolutely canceled out here. So let's look at Shin Biolante. What can she use or cannot use in terms of far range? Spiked atomic laser, the laser travels. That's fine for far range. 10,000 tentacles. She can only use the tentacles, because obviously the tentacles aren't getting 700 meters. Ain't happening. But the tentacles she can use for defensive methods to, cover her body up. But in terms of offensive, no. So 10,000 tentacles, we're just going to cancel it, but essentially she can use them for defensive, so that's fine. But offensive-wise, it's canceled. Tentacle poison laser also will not be able to work because it's more weaker, it doesn't travel as far, so the tentacle poison laser she cannot use. Regeneration does not matter, that's fine, it's a personal trait. Instant adaptation is a personal trait. The false heart trap will also not work because it either, the opponent has to use physical abilities or a traveling distance, and the false heart trap, or known as the mirror blast, it can't reflect back. It can't reflect 750 meters. It won't make the distance. So we're gonna say no to that. Okay. Let's move on to Jormungandr and let's see what he can or cannot use. Speed. That's a personal trait. That's fine. Strength. Again, personal trait. That's fine. Durability. That's fine. Venom. The venom is discreted when he bites the opponent. So that's a problem because we need a personal touch here and that's not going to work. So we're going to cancel that out as well. And Megabyte. And the Megabyte, again, he needs physical touch. He essentially has no abilities. Speed, strength, durability, sure. But when it comes to the actual putting these abilities to use, the Venom and the Megabyte, or even like the Tail Whip, are all physical touch, and we're doing far range. I think this is the first monster to ever, in this case, forfeit. He has no abilities to use at far range, hence he will lose. This is the quickest one we've ever done for far range. He lost far range because he forfeit because he has no abilities to win in far range. Remember, you might say he's covers the whole Earth. Far range is meant for 700 meters. Essentially it's a battle without touching the opponent. He fails at this, so Jormungandr forfeits. We're gonna give to Shin Biolante 1-0. Now, this is where things get juicy. Close range. Face to face. Now let's take this into consideration. All abilities are fair game here. Shin Biolante stands at approximately 252 meters tall, Jormungandr covers the whole Earth, or as is said to be. So, Shin Biolante's big, big advantage here is the instant adaptation. She can evolve and she can adapt to fit the situation. Obviously, there is going to be some limitations on genetic DNA and all that stuff. So, when it comes to Jormungandr, Shin Biolante is absolutely very, very close to a god, sometimes even by Shin himself called a god incarnate. And that's because of the adaptation. So I'm going to try to make a case here, and this is just my view. So Jormungandr's strength is superior to Shin Biolante. But I believe, personally, I believe that Shin Biolante can adapt her body in a very specific way to be able to counter the speeds of Jormungandr off of study and error. That's how this works. Let me give you a quick example of what I mean, so it maybe clicks more quicker. Shin Godzilla, because remember, this is Shin DNA. When he was evolving, what did he do? Before the film ended, at the tip of his tail, we saw humanoids. We saw humanoids, like human-looking figures. Why? Because he witnessed humans, so he was adapting and evolving into the humans. So off of that potential case, which is the same DNA, who is to say Shin Biolante cannot evolve into a secondary Jormungandr? A secondary Jormungandr size. And the limit here is that her abilities will stay. But the thing is, with that logic, I believe that's just going to make her more powerful. It's going to make her as humongous as reaching to the atmosphere of the Earth. With the adaptive ability, including, as we talked about, the spiked atomic laser, the 10,000 tentacles, the tentacle poison laser, regeneration, instant adaptation, which talked about it, false heart trap, putting it together, imagining a giant 10,000 tentacles, grabbing Jormungandr, shooting a spiked atomic laser, and just ripping into the flesh. Because imagine, if she adapts and grows even bigger, the laser gets more powerful, the laser gets more focused, and the thorns in the laser get sharper and bigger. And so I see, with that logic, if you're following me, that Shin Biolante can actually defeat Jormungandr. I personally see it. Obviously, this is just my opinion. I think you have the right to debate me in the comment section below. Actually, I motivate you to do that. That'll be very, very interesting if you do actually do that. But so I'm going to say 2-0 in favor of Shin Biolante off of this analysis. As I said again, comment below, request different debates. I'm always happy to do Norse or any type of creature, right? I mean, debates are cool. So comment, debate with me. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great and wonderful day.